That segues to talking about the Tana Bits playlist, which the very first one that I did, I had myself in the corner and I was okay with that ish. But then I was really pleased to find out when I did another couple that there was really no reason to have me, my face in those videos. So I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to worry about how I looked. I didn't have to worry about where I'm placing myself, all of those things. So that was nice. But I knew that I wanted to do things eventually that would require more than that. But I'll get into that later. For now, talking about the Tana Bits playlist, there are several points that I want to touch on. The first is a principle that I try to live by as much as possible, and that is having multiple things for multiple purposes. Everything that you do serves multiple purposes, and every purpose that you're striving for, you are achieving through multiple things. And just as an example, the Tana Bits playlist. So I had several different purposes that I was chasing after by doing the Tana Bits playlist. I have two categories for these reasons. The first category is business reasons, strictly business. I noticed what I thought was a content gap in the market. And I noticed it because it was a particular pain that I felt myself. Sometimes I was working in Tana and I just wanted something that gave me in-depth information on just this one little thing that I'm working on. And there's always hidden levels to any particular little thing in Tana because it's that powerful and that complex. But there wasn't really like a dictionary or a thesaurus for things. And so that was really the inspiration for doing the Tana Bits playlist. And I was just looking for some kind of content to differentiate myself, something that other people aren't doing. There were all sorts of other things that people were doing where it was scenario based or doing just kind of an overall introduction to Tana or just covering a new feature or something. And it's not like those were not useful, but other people were doing those things. And one quote that I like from Peter Thiel, he says, "Competition is for losers." So ideally, you escape competition. You create product categories or content categories that are unique enough that you're not really competing with anyone. Not really. So that was a couple business reasons right there. And I expected several possible user experiences. One was troubleshooting, a lot like, what I was experiencing, the pain point for myself, as kind of a video encyclopedia for features and concepts in Tana. I think I hit that pretty well. Another was bite-sized learning. So not just going in for basically kind of like a definition of how something works and what's possible with it, but also using it as a mechanism for learning. It's not directed and it's not comprehensive of the entire experience of using Tana, but I did see it possible to be used as a learning mechanism like that. And it could either complement what they're learning from other people in the Tana sphere, or, they could be binge viewing these one after another because there are 3, 4, at most 5 minutes a piece. So that was an intentional decision on my part. Also, there's a modularity aspect to it. Because they're so small, because they are just bits, they can be pieced together with each other or as part of larger experiences down the road. So that covers the business reasons, the personal reasons for having the Tana Bits playlist, and why that was the first thing in particular that I focused on doing. So number one, it forced me to create concise quality content. Contrary to what I think is the popular impression, creativity is usually sparked by having constraints. And so constraining myself of creating within a certain time window. That was a very useful exercise for me in creating content. And as I start to create more long form content, there's a lot of flowing and giving and taking, and it's not meant to be jam-packed with information. But for bits and for other stuff that's going to be more educational related to Tana in the future, I have a goal of having a very high information to length ratio. I hope I said that right. Very dense with information, but not overwhelming. That's the idea. The other thing is related to that, learning through action. Like I said, I tried to avoid doing YouTube. I really didn't want to. Did not want to. But once I realized it was inevitable, one way or another, that I would need to do something like YouTube, okay, let's do this then. No matter how much theory, how much you think about it, how many maybe videos that you watch, you never know until you actually start doing. That's when you really learn. So I forced myself to be uncomfortable and just kind of plow ahead. And I wasn't that uncomfortable for that long. Kind of surprised me. Another personal reason. When I use the word personal, I mean it's related to the business. It's a professional thing, but it's related to me as an individual. That's what I mean when I say like a personal reason. So another personal reason for me to do Tana bits and to focus on just making those for a while, it was a fishing rod for me. And if you're watching and you heard me say that, you probably thought that makes no sense. You're right, it doesn't, unless you know the story that I'm about to tell you. So I was listening to a podcast. This guy was interviewing John Chambers, who has done lots of things, but he was the CEO of Cisco for a long while during a really turbulent period. And he told a story. When he was 6 years old, he was fishing in West Virginia with his dad. And they were fishing in rapids, so not exactly a calm stream or anything. Pretty dangerous if you fall in. And guess what? He fell in. What his dad yelled at him when he fell in, he told him to hold on to the fishing pole. So he was yelling that and checking on him, looking in the stream as he ran downstream and eventually rescued the kid. Once John was rescued, his dad asked him, "Do you understand what happened?" And John replied, "Yeah, I held on to the pole." And his dad was like, no, you didn't panic. That's why he told him to hold on to the pole, gave him something to focus on, something that he can control, something that he can influence what happens when he was being tossed around down these rapids. The most unhelpful thing would have been for him to thrash around and probably hurt himself before his dad even had a chance to get to him. So the moral that I took from that story and the lesson that I tried to apply with Tana Bits was giving myself one thing, solving multiple purposes simultaneously, but just giving myself one thing to focus on that I can control. And don't panic. Don't let my nerves get to me. Don't let me talk myself into changing directions for no reason. Just focus on this one thing for a little while, at least. Don't get distracted and just see what happens. And then you can think clearly and make decisions for next steps. If I hadn't done that, I have no idea what would have happened, but I imagine I would have fallen for shiny object syndrome. I would have been chasing something random. I would have maybe talked myself out of the entire thing.